All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. So my guest today is Michael Chandler. He's like a son to me, and he is scheduled to fight Conor McGregor on June 29th. He doesn't know this, but I'm recording this intro just in case. I have a suspicion Conor McGregor doesn't want to fight my dude. And so I'm recording this introduction beforehand, just in case there's a cancellation. So when I do the interview today, we're going to talk about that fight, but we're going to talk in general more about success, mindset, achievement, pressure, all the things that come with being in a big fight, not just the fight itself, because I have a suspicion McGregor wants nothing to do with my dude. And so this is an intro I'm doing right before Michael jumps on. He won't even know I'm doing it because I don't want him to know right now. I think that maybe Conor won't show up, but I think Conor might not show up. So this is the intro I'm doing before he gets here. And if Conor doesn't show up, I knew you didn't want to fight my dude, brother. That's why I'm doing this intro on June 12th, way before the fight, knowing you ain't going to show up. All right, here we go. Here's me and Michael Chandler. Quick update, everybody. Hey, everybody. So just got the word 30 seconds ago, just got off the boat to the news that Conor McGregor has backed out of the fight. As I suspected, you heard in the previous introduction there, I just had a feeling. Conor's claiming that he's got an injury, and you never want to question a man when he says he's injured, so we'll take him at his word on that. Fortunately, I had a feeling this was going to happen, and so the interview you're about to see is not really about the fight. It's more about mindset. It's actually one of the best interviews I've ever done on mindset, the winner's mindset, overcoming setbacks, imposter syndrome, preparation, visualization, the reticular activating system. It's an incredible interview. There's even a surprise from another four-time world champion in boxing that I bring in. I surprised Michael in the interview. You're going to love that. And really the only question that I ask about the fight is the first question. And even that, I phrase it in such a way that you can hear how to get yourself to believe you're going to win and what you need to do. I've been honored to be working with Michael on his mental game for this fight. And so you'll hear a little bit about how that works as well. Even the first question seems about the fight, but it's really about getting yourself to believe. Enjoy. Max out. So, hey guys, are you frustrated with where you're at right now? Maybe stunted in your progress? Well, if you are, I want to recommend a place for you to go called Growth Day. growthday.com/ed. It is the #1 personal development app on the planet. It's got all kinds of high performance techniques in there, courses, accountability, journaling, live speeches from some of the top influencers in the world, including me. It's an overall environment to change your life. growthday.com/ed. Welcome back to the show, everybody. So the young man I'm going to introduce to you he's like a second son to me. I'm honored when he calls me dad. He's one of the greatest fighters in the world in the UFC, but he's really one of the greatest people that I've ever met. I love him dearly. He's a good man. He knows how to be successful. And so tonight, the podcast is really about two things for those of you listening. We're going to talk about this huge fight he's got upcoming on June 29th with Conor McGregor. We're going to talk about that fight. But for those of you that aren't fight fans, we're going to spend the majority of the podcast not just talking about that fight, but talking about winning, preparing, mindset, preparation. And so if you're a fight fan, this is an exclusive peek into this fight. And if you're not a fight fan, it's not going to matter because we're going to talk all the time, as we always do on the show, about things you can take notes on and apply to your own life. So June 29th, the great Michael Chandler, Conor McGregor. My guest today is my son from another, I don't know, son, you say son from another mother. Is that right? I guess so. I don't know. He's my son. Michael, welcome to the show.
What's up, Dad? Man, it's thank you for the kind intro. You are the man.
Yeah. So the update, everybody, how are you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling good. I mean, as we sit here today, we are 18 days away from the fight. So it's nice when all the hay is in the barn, so to speak. I mean, we still got a little bit of training left, but it's kind of most of the hard stuff is behind us. Feeling great, feeling phenomenal, feeling a little dangerous, and ready to go out there and compete.
Why are you going to win the fight?
Man, I think, you and I have obviously talked about this a lot over the last year and a half throughout this whole process, but also really in depth these last couple months. Man, I just believe I've earned it. I really do. I think for a guy who never thought that he would be in these kinds of positions, that idea sounded so foreign to me, like I didn't deserve it. I have now become that man and stepped into that role, and I've done everything right. I've trained years and years and years for this moment. I've grown as a man. I've taken my losses, continued to tick forward. And I was born for a time such as this. So I think this performance will not only be the biggest fight of my life, but the best performance of my life. And I think that's the way it was supposed to happen. It was supposed to be against the biggest name in the sport. It was supposed to be against a guy like Conor, who is a little bit different than me in a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of people would say in a lot of ways. And it's got a great storyline, and I want to be the hero of this story.
I love that. Most of you don't know, but I'm honored that I get a little bit of chance, a little bit, to work with Michael on this fight, just in his brain a little bit, and honored to get a chance to do a little bit of the work with him on that. Did you, what you just said applies to everything in life about success, that we earn it, that we've been preparing for these moments all of our lives. But I'm curious in your case, like we'll show the clip right now on YouTube, and we'll do the audio here as well. But like you called him out way back when after Big W.
I got one dude on my mind. Conor McGregor, you gotta come back and fight somebody. I am the most entertaining lightweight on the planet. But I want to up the stakes, Conor. I want you at your biggest, I want you at your baddest, and I want you at your best. You and me at 170 this summer, this fall, this winter. Holler at your boy. God bless. I'll see you at the top.
Michael Chandler, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm just curious, were you planning on doing that if you won the fight? I've never even asked you this. Or was it just like random? You're like, Conor McGregor. Was it like, did you know you were going to do that? Or was that completely like Holy Spirit or inspired moment standing there after a W?
I've had a lot of those Holy Spirit moments, but this one was premeditated. I think with the sport of mixed martial arts, A, it moves fast. B, we are all victims of timing and circumstance, like whether it be a certain opponent not ready or a certain opponent ready too soon and you're not ready. It just, the stars were going to align, and it made a lot of sense in my mind, thinking ahead in the future for right after I knocked out Tony Ferguson that night. And he was just on his way coming back, talking about coming back. The timing was going to work out perfectly. And I wanted to shoot my shot. I mean, there's every single person in the sport of mixed martial arts within 2 or 3 weight classes of Conor McGregor says his name often. And there's a reason why. He's the biggest name in the sport. I'm a guy who I know that we will create some magic, create some fireworks inside of a UFC octagon. I believe I will be the victor, and I do believe that I deserved to be in that moment. If anybody was going to have that bright of a light shined on them, if anybody was going to have those high of stakes, I wanted it to be me, because why not?
I love that. Oh, here's my surprise for you, Mr. Chandler.
Oh, yeah?
So I have my really, really good friend joining us today, everybody, and Michael. This is Mikey Garcia, who is a 4-time, he's a boxing champion, 4-division champion, and has had one of the most prolific careers in all of boxing. And I love him. And he's been a guest on my show. And I just thought, you know what? From one champion to another, I thought I'd have him whisper some words of wisdom to you here today, if he would. So, Mikey, thanks for jumping in, brother.
Yeah, thank you. And Michael, pleasure to meet you, brother.
You as well, man. You are a legend, dude. It's awesome to meet you.
Are you surprised?
Awesome, man.
Yes, I am. That is awesome, dude.
So
that's awesome. Great.
And Mikey's one of the most giving dudes in the world. As long as you buy him dinner at Javier's, you got to pay for dinner when you're with him. But so, bro, I'm just curious, Mikey, if you're talking, you've had these huge fights. In fact, I've been at Texas Stadium with this dude in front of 50,000 people. I mean, he's had huge fights. Is it different in a big fight, Mikey? Like anything you would say to Michael, mentally, is there anything different when it's a huge high profile fight as opposed to, something that, no offense to any of great boxers, but some casino on the come up compared to, a big arena, a Vegas fight or whatever? Did that affect your mentality? Did you look at the fight differently? Or is it just another fight?
Look, you've been in it, your whole life. I was in it since I was a little kid. So I always took each fight as a big fight because I knew, winning one fight would lead to the next and move my career forward. So getting to the big arena, to the big stage, you talked about, AT&T Stadium, in Texas, and 50,000 people there. But to me, it was just another night. I worked my whole life to get there. And I think, I was just excited to finally make it to that, stage, to the highest, in my career. And what I did do a lot is I visualized that a lot. I visualized the fight. I visualized, training. I visualized, every scenario during the fight, winning or losing rounds, overcoming challenges in the fight, a cut, a knockdown, whatever it could be. I would always visualize, and that went for every fight, but especially on the big one, because I didn't want anything to be, out of my norm to scare me or timid me in any way. So for me, it was visualizing everything, the ring walk, the introduction to the fight, just so that I could have that already in my head. When I experienced it, it wasn't as new. It was already there before. I had already logged it in. I've already seen myself in front of that kind of attendance, that kind of crowd, and I just felt comfortable. I felt normal. It felt like another day. The training obviously was harder. The training was, more vigorous for the training camp and longer weeks and all that, because I was fighting a bigger guy. I was fighting a bigger, man in the ring on fight night. So I had to prepare a little differently, but mentally I was, strong. It was like a normal thing. Like, I just need to be here. I visualized every round, even though the fight didn't go the way I originally wanted to. I that was my first loss, but I walked out of that 100% healthy, fine. We hung out the next day. We flew back together.
We flew back
You
together.
could tell.
Yep.
You could tell that my mindset was sharp as ever. I was still, confident. I was still having plans for the future, and it didn't send me back. It wasn't ever like that. So that's what I got.
Let me ask you, by the way, does that sound familiar, Michael, about the visualization?
Sure does.
By the way, all of you, this is a gift you're getting today that, I didn't intend to give you publicly, and I don't know that I'll put all this out either, by the way, but to have two gladiators talk to one another like this about it. And by the way, Mikey and I did fly back after that fight together, and I was like just struck by how calm he was. Like, all right, bro, we're gonna another one. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. But Mikey, what was interesting about what you just said, and Michael, I'll let you ask Mikey anything you want to. That's why I brought him here today. But Mikey, you would actually visualize negatives too. You're okay with visiting.
Yes.
I lost a round or whatever. I'm interested in that. You think that was an okay thing to do? Because I do as well. Might as well. I mean, you're going to lose a round. You're going to get hit. Something bad's going to happen. To avoid thinking about it, to me, seems sort of silly. Why not become familiar with it so you can respond? Is that why you would do it?
Yes, it's just so that you don't get nervous or panic if something does happen during the fight. It's better to be well prepared for any scenario, including a knockdown or a cut, something of that nature. But no matter what I envisioned or I visualized, I always came out the winner. I would always visualize myself winning at the end of the night. Whether it was I lost a couple of rounds or it was a tough fight. I got dropped in one of the rounds, but I got up and I know how to react, and I know how to continue with the remainder of rounds and always winning at the end of the night. In other instances, different fights, I did get dropped on two separate occasions, but I knew what to do. I knew how to react. I had already planned how to even get up from a knockdown. I didn't want to get up in any way that would make the referee think that I was hurt and stop the fight. So I purposely figured how to position myself, how to take my time, how to take a knee first, and then slowly, gradually walk up, and then walk a little bit towards the neutral corner, give my opponent more space, so that when the fight resumed, I wasn't right in front of him, and he's attacking me. I give more space, so I would visualize that and prepare myself. I didn't do it in training camp where I would purposely go down and get up. No, but I would do it here, training my mind to be able to react in those scenarios. If I got cut, I knew exactly to signal my corner, let them know that I was cut, so they could prepare the medicine, so that as soon as the end of the round was there, the bell rang, I was already close to my corner. In fact, a lot of the rounds I would walk close to my corner at the 10-second count. I'd walk close to my corner, so in case there was anything, they'd be the first ones to attend me, while my opponent still has to walk all the way across to his corner. Those are a few seconds extra that I will have that my opponent doesn't have.
Wow.
So I would practice all this.
What I want everybody to get, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're an athlete, or I want Michael too for this, is the specificity of preparation, right? To think that you would actually, and in Michael's case, it's not quite as easy if he's on the ground, but the specificity to think that you're actually edging towards your corner early to get those extra few seconds of cuts. So, hey guys, as you know, I've partnered up with my good friend Brennan Bouchard, who's created the greatest personal development system that has ever been designed, called Growth Day. There's everything from journaling to accountability programs, live messages every Monday from myself and other influencers. There's an opportunity for you to get courses that would cost thousands of dollars completely for free. It's incredible. Go to growthday.com/ed and check it out. So, hey guys, are you looking for more optimization in your life? If you are, try Bond Charge. Bond Charge is a holistic wellness brand, huge range of evidence-based products that help you get more energy, perform better, recover faster. I love their infrared sauna blanket. It's what I've been using now for a while when I hurt my back. It's the perfect way to detoxify, reduce stress, improve your overall well-being. It's also very easy to use. You just set it up in like a minute. You can enjoy a 30 to 40-minute session. You're going to love it. You'll feel more relaxed, revitalized, and less stressed. It's a really good addition to any wellness routine. By the way, all the products are HSA, FSA eligible for pre-tax savings up to 40%. So go to bondcharge.com and use coupon code ED to save 15%. That's BONCHARGE.com and use coupon code ED to save 15%. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. Now, one thing you were great at, this is more like inside stuff for Michael. One of the things Mikey was most well known for in boxing was his ability to go in with a game plan for the fight, because his brother's the greatest trainer in the world. And so they had a game plan for the fight, but mid-fight, mid-round, begin to pick up on tendencies that he didn't see on film. In other words, react when things don't go the way he expected them to go, Michael, right? But that was, I think, Mikey, you correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was actually your greatest strength in the ring, was your ability to adapt to a dude, whatever you saw that night. First, am I right about that? And two, any insight for him? Let's say he gets in there with Conor, right? He's going to have a game plan. We're not going to say what it is. But like most fights, you know, like Tyson says, everything can change when you get punched in the mouth, or just Conor comes in there with something totally different, right? Conor's going to throw some things at him he hasn't seen before. How were you consciously thinking as you're going, or is it some depth perception thing you're using, a feel thing? Like, what would you do to read him?
Look, I'm looking at my opponent. You know, I'm taking the first round or 2 rounds to study my opponent. The way I study my opponent is I feel his speed. I let him punch a few times to be able to time the reaction, you know, time the speed of the punches, and also timing his defense. So I'll jab a couple times and see how fast he can either block or dodge the punch, so I can make my adjustments as the rounds go by. Second round, I'm still feeling him out, but maybe by the 3rd round, you know, I'm already have a good idea of what to do. However, things can change, like you just mentioned, things can change. So I prepared myself to be able to adapt. And as the rounds kept going, I'm also listening to the guy's breathing. I'm listening to the way his body's, his posture, you know, are his hands still up high and is he still got the same intensity behind it, or is he starting to slow down? Is he starting to wear out? Are we tying up? If we're hugging, if we're tying up, is he trying to let loose to continue fighting, or is he just kind of trying to rest now? It's the 8th round. Maybe he's just resting a little bit, you know. So I'm paying attention to all that. And at the same time, I'm figuring out what I got to do to keep countering his, you know, fight, his game. If he's changing something, if he's still on it, if he's still trying to do something, okay, maybe I got to box a little bit more. Maybe I got to pressure. So all that training came from being in shape in the gym, training hard in the gym, all those weeks of training, you know, all that. There's days in sparring sessions where I would box 12 rounds, beautiful footwork, beautiful speed, counterpunch for 12 rounds, so that I knew I can do that for 12 rounds on fight night. But then there was other days where I would switch it, where I'd be fighting, you know, 8 rounds, solid forward pressure. In case I needed to do that on fight night, I know I'm capable of doing that as well. Okay. So training, I would do all that. I would do all that in training.
A lot of people would say, well, some of that he's got time because there's 12 rounds. But there are, but there's a ton of guys in the UFC that are spending time reading. I think of Izzy, he does that. He's reading cadence, he's reading speed, he's reading pace. John Jones, St. Pierre did it. This is done in the UFC as well. They're pacing themselves in the round. They're making, these are just things for Michael as he's ready for the fight that I want him to at least have the gift of in considering, and then just, you know, for back and forth. Was there anything, and then Michael, I'll let you ask him something, anything press-wise that week? This is more of like an inside thing, but like big fights, there's more press. There's more demands on your time, particularly fight week, right? And I mean, can you imagine McGregor Chandler, what the press demands will be that week? Did you, I mean, it's one of the biggest fights in the history of the sport. So, so anything you did to mentally stay a particular way or pace yourself or that you would think of in dealing with just even press for the week of the
Look,
fight?
the press, that media is gonna be tough. It's gonna be rough.
Mm,
Everybody's gonna be pulling you left and right. Everybody wants, 10 minutes of your time, and you're obligated, to some extent. You have to give, press. You got to give the media some time. You got to give them interviews. It's part of promoting. It's part of being professional, at that level. But what I used to do was any moments that I had free time, I go rest. I would always make sure I get enough rest.
mm,
Even if it was only a 20, 30-minute little nap, even if you don't go to sleep, but just laying down, chilling, and resting your eyes for those 20, 30 minutes will help.
mm,
At the end of the day, your number one goal is to perform and fight on Saturday night, on fight night, to your best of your capabilities. The media can wait a little bit. The media can be put to the side. You got to give them a little bit, but it's not all that matters. The number one thing is winning the fight.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
number one. So you got to give them some time. Yeah, it's part of promoting, part of the business, part of, marketing the fight. But every moment that I had, every hour, every 30 minutes that I had, I'd go take a break. I'd go take a nap, because that would really, really help me continue my day and keep the energy. It's exhausting to be in front of media, repeating the same shit over and over and over and over. And you have to have the smile and the same energy. You're exerting a lot of energy over the days.
Yep.
You may not be working out as hard anymore because now it's chill week, it's lighter work. And until you got to cut weight, you're kind of slowing down on the pace of the training. But the whole media, the whole press, it's exhausting. So take all the time that you have to rest your body. Like I said, at the end of the day, if you really don't feel like doing every single interview, you don't have to. You don't feel so good. Hey, I'm not doing that one. I'm only doing the ones that really, really matter because I'm contractually obligated. I'll do that. The network or the main ones. After that, hey, I'm done. I'm resting because I want to win the fight.
Yeah, these are all things, by the way, everybody. And let's just be clear. Michael's had tons of huge fights. Madison Square Garden. I mean, he's fought in the biggest arena in the world, just like Mikey has, right? He's done this. But everyone listening to this, it's getting an inside peek of what top athletes in the world think about and talk about. Same thing comes in business. Sometimes you got to say no to meetings because you got a big close at the end of the week. You got to be your best and peak at that moment, right? So these are all the same principles. Michael, all the big fights you've had. I just wanted to put someone almost the same sport, but a little bit different. We could have to just have you think about it just from a little bit out of the box, but still in the same box type thing. Both of you guys have had the biggest fights in the world. You've both won them. This fight, Michael rather, is going up in weight a little bit per his own decision, so cutting won't be as bad. You went up in weight too, Mikey, 4 different times. Michael, anything you want to ask Mikey before I let him go so we can have the rest of the show and talk? But anything you want to ask him?
Yeah, I mean, more than anything, I love to piggyback off of what you were saying about the visualization. I mean, just for the audience listening and even hearing it from a world-class guy like Mikey, who I have watched on TV so many times, knowing that before going into that fight, during the visualization, it isn't all just about success. It's also about overcoming obstacles, right? Because who doesn't want to be able to see themselves knowing that, you're going to be in the trenches taking grenades and you're going to be able to get through them, and how you're going to react and respond, and seeing yourself become victorious even when there is a little bit of adversity, as well as, we're not there yet to fight week yet. Next week, I got to go out to New York for a full day to do some press stuff. The press is about to start picking up. And I think for me, realizing that I have such a great crowd of witnesses. I've had big fights, but this is even bigger. So therefore it's even more of a conviction to show up with a smile on my face as much as I can, but also be selfish when I need to take a little bit of time and maybe say no to a couple of them where you're like, yeah, this one's not exactly, one of the big ones, but no, that inside of even just like thinking about and your highlights and the fights that I've seen you in, and thinking about that man, because you've always just been that man, that dominant guy out there, but then also hearing those little idiosyncrasies about the visualization and all the different things that you looked at and watched and played inside of your head, even leading into those fights. And they weren't always positive, but they always ended with your hand getting raised.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mikey, I got to tell you, man, I'm really grateful you did this today, bro. Like, You know, you
Oh,
didn't
man,
need to
of
do it
course.
immediately, Michael. Just so you know, immediately I asked Mike. He's like, "Yep, I got you." He was in New York. He's like, "I got it. I'll make it happen." I had to change the time on him. He's like, "No problem, bro." And the other thing everybody should know, and I talk about this Michael all the time, Mikey saved his money. Mikey saved his money. All you athletes listening, that's why he's real casual in a t-shirt, and me and Chandler are still working right now. Chandler saved his money too, but Mikey saved
Yeah.
his money, and he's a young, wealthy man. Bunch of real estate. He's done really, really well for himself. So I love you, brother. Thank you for jumping in. I appreciate it. I'll text you when we're done here.
Let me know. Thanks, Ed. And
Mikey.
want to wish you the very best, Michael. You know, we know how gangster you are. We know, you're such a badass you are. You got this. I mean, you've been training your whole life for this. There's nothing more that we gotta give you, much more tips on fighting. I mean, you've done it. You just gotta go in there and take care of business, brother. I wish you the very best. I'll be checking it out.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you, man. And I'm gonna have Ed connect us so we can.
I'll do it
we can
today.
hang out.
I'll connect
For
you
sure,
when we're
man.
done.
I would love that.
You're the man,
We'll
Mikey.
go
I
get some-
appreciate you, brother.
We'll go get some dinner after your fight.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. Where'd you say Julio's, or where you want to say?
We're going to go to Javier's, but you're going to win this
Javier's,
fight.
there you go. Let's go.
You're going to win the fight, and you're going to buy us dinner. So that's what we're going
I
to do.
got that. I got you guys.
All right, brother. Take
All right,
care,
brother.
Mikey.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good one,
God
guys.
bless, man. How cool was that, bro? Was that cool?
Dude, it's so cool, man. Absolute warrior. I mean, that was
Yeah.
the thing too. Obviously, phenomenal technician, phenomenal at boxing, but also just a warrior, man. Like,
Yep.
and obviously, like you said, different sports, but
Yep.
they're the same. It's hand-to-hand combat, whether
Exactly.
it's wrestling, boxing, kickboxing, these hand-to-hand combat competitions, man.
Yep. And one of the things that you all should know that, kind of inside baseball stuff that Mikey and I work on and that Michael and I work on is visualization. A lot of you ask about that, but it's like really detailed stuff. And it's okay to visit failure. It's okay to visit a down cycle. And in fact, I think it's really important because then you can program yourself out of it. So anyway, I just wanted to have you visit with him for a minute and have the audience listen to the two of you. So let's go shift a little bit. How did Mikey got there and you've gotten there? Did you get there? How much of this was natural for you? Like, you're a college wrestler. How much of where you got was, you're just athletically super gifted? And how much of it was the actual grind? Like, when you were in college, did you see dudes who were just better than you? Even in college, did you see guys athletically that were even better than you? And how do you end up being this guy that's on the world stage, one of the most famous fighters, obviously the most electrifying fighter, probably in the history of the UFC? Was it just gifted talent, or were you always seeing dudes that you thought even were more naturally physically gifted than you?
I think, especially in college, once I become, more of an adult or a young man, if you will. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys had a lot more talent than I did, but I think it was, I think we can talk about talent and hard work and how they intersect, right? But you're given a certain amount of gifts, but then it's up to you to just continue to see if you can find the edge of those gifts. And then all of a sudden it seems as though those gifts compound on themselves, and then you're able to stretch them even more. And then they compound on themselves and you stretch even more. I mean, I think more than anything, and this is why, you and I talk about, it's all up in here as well. Obviously I look a certain way. I look like an athlete. I can jump on a box. I can lift weights.
Yep.
I look like an animal inside the cage. Obviously, I have built this man that you see before you who steps into the octagon. I have built him into who I am. I've got some natural gifts, but there's so much of it was being trapped inside of my mind. And I could see in the mirror a guy who looks like he should be successful in hand-to-hand combat, but my mind didn't truly believe it. And then once you start adding that belief into it, and you're able to sprinkle a little bit more confidence week by week, month by month, and then all of a sudden you just watch it flourish. And it's that butterfly effect that started back when I was 14 years old when I first started. And then each level up brings about a little bit more confidence. And then you have a couple setbacks you got to go through. And I think more than anything, I've been given gifts to show what hard work and what is capable if hard work is put in. Now, I'm not saying I didn't have any natural talent.
Yeah.
People see my workouts now and they're like, man, I wish I had those kind of gifts. And it's like, well, we can't really tell if I'm gifted or not because I've been doing it nonstop since I was 14 years old,
Exactly.
28 years.
Yep. And that's what everybody needs to get too. Success does not come as quickly sometimes as we think. This man's been at this now. How long have you been some sort of combat?
28 years since I was 14 years old.
Watch this, everybody. How old were you when you got your UFC contract this time? How old were you?
34.
Do you hear that, everyone? That is highly unusual. He got his UFC contract at 34 years old. That's a long time. So a lot of you, there's just a point of where you'll quit. You'll just give up. It would have been really easy when he'd lose a fight at Bellator.
Bellator, yeah.
Yeah, he'd lose a fight in Bellator or something, and you'd think, well, that's it, you know? And then to come back and to win and become a champion again and to get into these huge fights is just unbelievable. So sometimes it's going to take longer than you think it's going to take. One thing Michael did is he just stuck around long enough to collect on all the deposits he had made. He's finally getting a withdrawal. So, hey, guys, you know, when I love technology and a great idea revolutionizes an old industry. And by the way, if there's an industry that needs a revolution, I think you'd agree with me, it's the healthcare industry. It's not easy to find good doctors. And by the way, good doctors that are in your area that also take your insurance. And that's why I love ZocDoc. They are revolutionizing the healthcare industry and the way you get access to doctors. ZocDoc, by the way, is ZocDoc. Here's who they are. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare highly rated in-network doctors near you and instantly book appointments with them online. Tons of different reviews on the doctors, and they're local to you. You can find out if they take your insurance. I just did it for a tear I had in my shoulder. One day later, I'm in the doctor's office getting some help, getting an order for an MRI. So go to ZocDoc.com/Mylett and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Mylett. ZocDoc.com/Mylett. So I get asked all the time, how did I get so much attention on social media, in my businesses, email list, etc.? I can tell you straight up, it's been Constant Contact. If you don't know who Constant Contact is, you need to know about these guys. Constant Contact's award-winning marketing platform has helped millions of small businesses, mine being one of them, stand out, stay on top of mind, and see big results fast. They've got an easy way to promote your business with powerful tools like email, SMS marketing, social media posting, and they even do events management, what they've done for me in the past as well. You're going to reach new audiences, you're going to grow your customer list big time, and communicate more effectively to sell more, raise more, and grow fast on social media. So get going and start growing your business today with a free trial at ConstantContact.com. Just go to ConstantContact.com right now. Constant Contact, helping the small stand tall. ConstantContact.com. Now, what do you leverage the dark side? You know, we talk a lot in sports about there's like leveraging the dark side, which is, you know, going to that dark place and coming from there. And then there's sort of like the other side, which is like dream and vision and chasing the light and chasing the good stuff. That duality, I'm just curious, like, is it fight night you leverage the dark side? Do you leverage it? Is that your main lever? Like, I'm going to kill this, I hate him. Or how do you do it?
It's a great question. I mean, honestly, I've said this numerous times. I know I'm about to have the best performance of my life when tears of joy are coming down my face and I'm listening to my music and I'm thinking about my wife and my kids and I'm thinking about some kid who I don't even know his name who's looking up to me, some mom who's like thinking, man, I want my son to grow up just like Michael, with like thinking about the generational curses and the chains that I'm able to lift off of people that I don't even know, that I've never come into contact with. And obviously, most importantly, my wife, my two sons. That's when I know when the tears of joy are welling up inside of me, or I'm getting goosebumps before, that's when I know. So I think I'm so much more tied to the joy, and it's just gratitude. I think I'm just so grateful. It really is crazy. I'm not supposed to be here compared to what my little 14-year-old, 18-year-old, 20-year-old self thought I was going to be doing, you know, athletically. I'm not supposed to be here if you ask them, you know, with all the self-doubt, and it's like I'm living a dream. So I'm so much more tied into that joy. But as the fight gets closer, I do know that I have that kind of pissed off for greatness. I have my moments. I have my don't take any crap from anybody type of mentality, especially when I'm training. When I'm training and I'm in the room, I'm not this guy that you know,
right.
and you know, I'm different. And it's not that I'm trying to hurt anybody, or it's not that I'm angry, but there's this little bit of, I don't know what word I would use, but it's like, hey, you guys know who I am, but I can't be trusted when I'm in here because I'm in my zone. Like, this is me in my zone. I'm not going to hurt anybody. I'm not here to hurt anybody or do anything illegal in a training partner, but like my willingness to go to a place where I don't care whose feelings I hurt or how badly I dominate somebody. So it's a different, and then all of a sudden the practice is over. I sit there, heart rate comes down. I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna go grab some lunch, and and I think it's a gift. I think it's a gift. I think it's beautiful, and I love that I can be that guy. And my wife doesn't know who that guy is. My sons don't know who that guy is. The fans watch that guy on fight night. But very few people get to see it unless you're really training with me on hard days or you're in the cage with me.
I was watching, just prepping for you and I watched last week, I watched Conor and Diaz 2. I watched that fight. And something really interesting struck me. That night, he was in, this is a long time ago too, everybody, but that night, Conor was in the biggest fight at that time in the history of the UFC. And I was just thinking where you were that night about the same time. And it was complete relative obscurity, right, at that time. No one knew Michael Chandler at that time, and he was actually in the middle during that time. I think it was when you had some of that streak that was not going the way that you wanted it to go, ironically. Yeah. And if you would have said at that time, here's a guy who's, had a couple setbacks at what is sort of the B level of the MMA. No offense to Bellator, that's probably not even fair, but B level, at least in notoriety.
That is fair,
right?
And I admit that. Yeah.
And notoriety. And then you got this dude that night pulling out a W in the biggest fight of the UFC. And if you would have told the world that night, now that dude that's over there in Bellator that's struggling right now, he's going to end up in Vegas June 29th, 2024, going head to head with this dude in the biggest fight in the history of the UFC potentially. It just should give everybody hope that anything is possible in their life, man. And you embody all of that. Is there a part of you, though, that has imposter syndrome? If you're being candid with the audience, that you do come from humble beginnings, you have had ups and downs, you are, coming off of, you haven't had a 6-fight win streak even right now, if we're being candid, right? So is there a part of you that has to overcome these mental demons, so to speak, of believing you belong, believing you can win, that I think most people struggle with? Or have you passed that stage of your life?
I think I definitely still have a certain degree of it, but I think I've gotten to the point where it's been revealed to me enough through life, the course of life, that the older you get, the more people you come into contact with, the more people you train with, or you're in business with, or you watch their work ethic, or you watch how they live their lives, both in front of the camera, behind the camera, and behind closed doors, in front of the public. And you start to really look around and take stock and think, you know what? I do think that the gold and diamonds was reserved for God's people, not the devil's bunch. I do think that the good among us are supposed to go out and capture those things. And before, it used to be like, yeah, but you don't deserve it. You don't deserve that. And if you do get that, well, what's going to happen? Maybe you're going to start rubbing people the wrong way. And I think I've gotten over that and realized, man, if you don't have a bunch of fruit on the back of your cart, you can't pass it out to people. If you've got nothing on your cart, you can't pass it out to people. And I do think I have a duty to be successful, because I can then use it to change people's lives. Where until I got to a certain point, it was like, well, I'm a little bit afraid. You actually were the first person I heard you talked about the thermometer, right? And I was that guy. Like, I'm okay with the thermometer getting to here, but I'm a little nervous if it gets too high. And that thermometer just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. And I'm getting okay with it each time. So I do think I have a little bit of a degree of that. As once again, you keep leveling up. Every time you level up, now you're into a new realm. So of course there's a little bit of it, but you say, wait a second, I've been here before. Let me watch how this plays out. And at the end of the day, when I lay my head on the pillow at night, I know that I deserve it. I'm one of those guys who deserves to go and capture that because of the way that I live my life.
That's exactly right. You've earned this. And by the way, everyone, a little bit of everything in moderation is actually good. So a little bit of imposter syndrome keeps you what you see in this young man right here. Humble, keeps you training hard, reminds you, I better outwork this dude because maybe I don't have everything they have. A lot of imposter syndrome will cause your thermometer to turn the air conditioner on and you'll cool your life back down. So a little bit of it is not, you don't have to eradicate all of your imposter syndrome. You have to eradicate that it's your dominant thought. But to have that in the back a little bit is not all that bad. I have it, which is what causes me to prepare for a speech or a podcast. It's what's caused me to save my money, because I don't believe all my press clippings. I don't believe I'm always going to win. Everything's entitled to me. And so it's a healthy thing to some extent. Let me ask you this. I was watching some fights, preparing for, our work. And my son's like, Dad, these guys are so good. And, I've hit bags and spar, and you know all that part of my background. And I said, Max, the different thing that you don't realize, because it looks like a video game when you watch people fight, is they're getting hit and still throwing punches back at the same time. That's the one thing I think when people watch any sort of combat, whether it's Mikey's sport and boxing or yours, they just underestimate how difficult it is to absorb punishment and return it. It's one thing to just dole out punishment into a bag, right? Or to hit mitts. It's a very different thing. And that's really, I told my son, I said, Max, that's the game of life. The game of life is everything looks good at the seminar. When you read the book or listen to the podcast, it's sort of like these offensive strategies. But the people that I've seen win, and I want you to talk about this in fighting and in your life, the people that I've seen win, they have this very special ability to absorb a punch and still throw back. And that's the separator in life, and it certainly is in sports as well. So just speak to that, Mike. I mean, metaphorically, you do it in there. And by the way, you may want to be the greats at all time at doing that. This is a dude who almost out on his feet can still knock people out better than anybody that's ever probably been in the sport, or at least one of them. But what about that fact of life and actually in the sport, literally?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting because I do think metaphorically, right, there's a lot of similarities there. But even realistically, I think from a physical standpoint, I think sometimes it's easier to take the blows inside of taking huge shots inside of a fight and keep coming forward, because there's not as much of an ego involved, because I'm not really worried about how everybody perceives the punch that just landed on me. Whereas in life, in business, in our relationships, we have a failed account or a failed relationship, or we have a setback here. Immediately, everybody stops and looks in the mirror and says, what's everybody else thinking around me? Whereas in mixed martial arts, I don't have the time, and I call it a luxury. I have the luxury of not having any time. If I sit and I dwell on that one punch that just landed and it rocked me, and I start thinking about what the people in the nosebleeds or in the front row are thinking about that shot that just landed, the second, the third, the fourth are going to come, and the knockout is going to ensue. Whereas in life, a lot of times we are stifled and stymied so much by, we take one blow, we take one shot, we take one setback, and we're just worried about everything else, instead of just, the definition of persistence is continuing in a course of action with complete disregard to previous failures and future opposition, right? So in life, we stop and we think way too much about what's everybody else thinking, or how is this going to look on social media? What are the press clippings going to say? Like you said, there's so much to it. And I've gotten really good at, and this happened to me when I came to the UFC. Like you said, I was outside the UFC, relative obscurity. I trained hard. I was a good athlete, but I wasn't a famous athlete. Then all of a sudden you come over, you're the biggest free agent signing maybe in UFC history, and everything doubles, and five times the following, and 5 times the interviews, and 5 times the platform. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I better get used to public criticism very quickly, or else this ship's going to sink. So I've just gotten really good at realizing, man, no matter what, this is my race that I'm running, and I love you, but it's still my race. And I love my wife, my kids, and I love my coaches, but this is still my race. And if I can just focus on me and know that if I just keep moving forward, and if anything, we don't follow people because of their successes. We follow people more even for their failures, because they were able to overcome something. People love a comeback. And that's what my whole story has been about. I am a blueprint for how you get knocked down, get back up, and keep moving forward, and then somehow end up in the biggest fight of the last decade.
By the way, he's also has a future in my space. In the personal development, motivational coaching space, as you could tell, because he's got this insane ability to articulate his thoughts. Okay, a couple more things. Separations in the preparation. I don't know if there's a more finely trained athlete on the planet than you right now. I mean, in any sport, this dude's a specimen. He trains his ass off. Do you like to train, or do you do it because you know it produces a result? And how important in anything someone's doing, particularly if maybe they think they lack something, is to gain their confidence from the preparation?
I think I do love to do it, because you ever ask yourself, like, what's the alternative? What is the alternative? I do think I use the word easy lightly because I'm sure the audience is like, dude, I watched the training. It looks crazy. But for me, it's easy. My hard is different than your hard and different than hard for everyone else. Me thinking about doing some of the things that you do, that sounds crazy to me. But to me, maybe working out as hard as I do, half the audience is like, man, I would die in the warm up. But it's become not easy in the sense that it's not hard every time I do it, but it's what I do. It's not who I be, but it is what I do. And I'm pretty darn good at it. And I do know that it produces results. And I do think, going back to the imposter syndrome or going back to the self-sabotage and going back to the temperature gauge, going back to my self-concept or my lowly self-concept that I used to have, if back when I was 14 years old, I didn't get into hand-to-hand combat thinking, okay, I'm not that talented, so I have to outwork everybody. And I've been able to take that now for the last 28 years, and I've never, ever lost it. And I've won world titles. I fought for the world title in the UFC. I have fought in Madison Square Garden twice, fight of the year, debut of the year. I've got all of these different accolades. Yeah. But still, the cornerstone always is me remembering that little 14-year-old boy who walked into Northwest High School and knew that I had just started wrestling and everybody else had been there for years, and I need to outwork all these people or I'm never going to get to where I'm going. And I still have that as a 38-year-old in the sport, 28 years in the sport. So I look at it like I am grateful that I have these two capable arms and these two capable legs to be able to do what I do, and I look at it as a blessing that I train here in Deerfield Beach, Florida, and there's two gyms connected to each other. And there's a physical therapy. There is a physical therapy clinic in our same entrance. We share one. And I see people coming in wheelchairs. I see people coming in with cerebral palsy. And I see people coming in with really bad injuries, car accidents, paralysis, all of these different things. And I know it sounds a little bit dark to think about, right? But yeah. I am so blessed to be able to do what I get to do. And every single one of those people would give anything to trade 1 week of this well-enabled body to be able to live in this well-enabled body. And I really always have looked at that blessing that most people they can talk about depression or they can talk about anxiety and sadness and all of these different things, but we have so many things to be thankful for that we just gloss over and overlook and just keep moving forward. And I think that's where it is. Knowing I can outwork everybody, taking my gratefulness and my gratitude for the abilities that I have and the opportunity that I have, and thinking about the alternative. The alternative is me going and getting a job somewhere, and I love what I do, and I get to do it every single day.
It's my producers, I guarantee you, are just, their mouths are open right now, because right before you got here, I recorded a podcast. It'll come out after this one. But I talked about focusing on what you possess as opposed to what you don't have, and then having perspective questions about the fact that someone's got it worse than you. And when you're actually able to do those two things and focus on what you have as opposed to what you're missing, and focus on the fact that you're blessed to have what you do have, that someone's got it worse, it's just amazing. Then you just go say this. How much is two last questions. How much is your growth on you? Like, most people can tell from listening to you now, but I want everyone to know, this man works very hard on himself. Like, Michael in his downtime, I'm not his only friend in this space. Michael will attend events. He's read the books. He listens to the podcast. He'll speak at these events as well. He's worked very hard on the internal him. And there's two elements of that. He's a man of very strong faith, but he's also worked on his mind, worked on his thinking, worked on himself, worked on that thermostat setting. How much of that, aside from all the physical training, do you attribute to the fact that you're going to be in the octagon on the 29th with McGregor?
I think it has everything to do with it. Really, and I made this, I made this realization years ago when you were talking about, if for the people that don't know, I went 688 days without winning a fight. And for a lot of people, that's a death sentence for an MMA career, going from world champion in Bellator to losing 3 fights in a row, thinking that at any point in time, I was going to get my walking papers or get a phone call that I was going to get cut from the organization. And in that time, I realized I was doing all the physical work. If you're my coach and you tell me to run through that wall, I will run through that wall, no questions asked, and I will do it harder and faster and better than every single else behind me. But what I wasn't working on was my mind, and what I wasn't working on is this self-image, and I was letting that get away from me. All I was doing was building up a bigger, faster, stronger, subpar version of the man that I was really created to be, because inside of my mind was so it was lacking and it was so important, but it needed to be revealed to me. And that was the thing too. If a bad thing happens to you, but a good thing comes from it, and you become a better person, a better man, a better father, a better husband, a better human being, you got to ask yourself, was it really a bad thing if a good thing comes from it? And I think I look at that point in my career and realize that was the catalyst and the springboard that was going to catapult me. That was the winding of the spring, and it was a painful winding of the spring. It came with tears, it came with self-doubt, it came with embarrassment, overwhelming embarrassment, but it was that coiling of that spring that eventually springboarded me to becoming the next version of the man that I needed to be. And yeah, I mean, I've always just been curious and admired people like yourself who are trying to make the world a better place, admitting their flaws, showing and wearing their heart on their sleeve, and talking about the struggles that you have gone through and how there's a lesson in every single loss. And, you know, I've been very blessed with so many great friends, and I have a duty to them to continue to be a part of that community. I have a duty to my family, and I have a duty to myself. And most importantly, I have a duty to my almighty God who created me, not just to be good, not just to be that little boy who was going to play it small and think that he doesn't deserve great things, and think that I could just, you know, barely get enough and barely get by and live paycheck to paycheck and nobody knows my name. I was commissioned, and I have this conviction, this deep conviction, to know that I was created to do something extraordinary. And it took years and years and years, and I just want to keep on adding to that. And when people say the sky is the limit, you know, it's a term that we use, but at some point you start to believe it, and you believe it not because of the Bentleys and the Bugattis and the boats and the watches and all the material things, but it's the things that you make people feel just with your presence and with your words and your voice. And that's what I want to be able to do. And now we got the biggest platform we ever could have asked for, and the sky is the limit.
Yeah. By the way, you are doing that. All right, Michael, I love you. Everybody, I hope this blessed you today. I'm sure that it did. Really cool to get into the mind of this absolute champion here, and actually for a few minutes, two of them at the same time. So, all right, everybody, God bless you. Share this episode and tune in on June 29th. And if it's after that time, share this episode with anybody who wants to hear about being a champion, winning, mindset, pressure, overcoming adversity, et cetera, et cetera. God bless you, everyone.